Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. Now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is the returning Kirk Windstein, the mighty Kirk Windstein, Hulk Blood himself, from Crowbar, from Down, from Kingdom of Sorrow. You may remember him from the Pantera home videos if you were at least my age or older. I don't even know if kids nowadays even know about those Pantera, I would say DVDs, but the VHSs, if I'm being really time accurate with when these things came out. But I don't even know if anyone knows about those anymore. I don't know if kids find those or I don't know. I don't even know if they exist. They have to exist on YouTube at this point. That's just something I've never thought to look for. Either way, every time I get an opportunity to talk to Kirk, I'm always going to take advantage of it. Dude's got stories for days. He is a fucking riff lord, riff legend, and just honestly somebody I could listen to talk about a lot of things. The dude is just dude's into sports. We talk about football, we talk about Down, we talk about music, we talk about tour routing and weird places and C&D markets and so forth in this conversation. And it's one of those where when you have someone like Kirk who is very well rounded with what you can discuss with him, it just makes it so much easier just to sit back and just have a nice conversation with him. And he's always so generous with his time. This is the second time he's been on the show, and both times I kind of try to wrap it up within my time limit, and he's always like, I got a little bit more time, let's go. And it's always greatly appreciated. Some of these guys, it's crazy for me to think about how long I've been a fan of Crowbar, of Down, of Kirk, of the different people in these bands, and to have a little bit of a rapport with them and have these conversations with them is just insane. Especially coming up on episode 500 pretty quickly here. Been doing a lot of thinking about where the show started, where it's at now, and it's wild. And I'm going to get more into this definitely as we get into the episode 500 stuff. But just kind of waxing nostalgic as it is, because literally we are into the new year now. We're pretty much into February. The year's already kind of kicking off. A lot of new things, new year, new president, new all these things. And it's just, it's cool sometimes to have to get to look back and just realize you're talking to people that are icons and legends of this scene, this music that we all are dedicated to. And honestly, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Kirk, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it.
Hello?
Hello, Kirk.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Good, man.
I'm excited to do another one of these with you. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, let's get it. Actually, we had told Liz about my father-in-law's house, but I'm fine.
Okay.
They're in there fooling with the TV, trying to get something to work or something. I don't know. So you're gonna have lunch in a little bit, but I'm all good to go, man.
No worries. I just kind of wanted to say, to kind of kick things off a little bit, and I know this may be a weird comment to make, but I love that between the spring tour and now the tour that you're getting ready to embark on next week as of when we're recording, that you're hitting like a lot of smaller markets. Like for me living in Michigan, you know, on the spring tour, you did the Blind Pig. On the one you're about to do, you're hitting the Earl in Atlanta. And to me, it seems like it's still very important all these years later for you guys to continually hit all the different markets and stuff like that maybe others would avoid or whatever. How important is it to you to still connect with all your fans in all the different cities and so forth?
I mean, it's extremely important. And also, you know, playing cities like we're playing Yuma, Arizona, which I've literally been on the very first tour we ever did in the United States, Obedience Through Suffering, our first record back in 1991. The only reason I remember Yuma, Arizona is we had a blowout on the U-Haul trailer with the van. And we pulled over at a gas station in Yuma, Arizona to get a tire. to call U-Haul from a payphone to come get the tire changed. So that's, I've never heard of it other than that. That was, 33 years ago. So what happens as well is, I mean, the day that Zero and Below, the album came out, the day it came out, we began a full U.S. tour with Sepultura and Sacred Right that ran we started in Sacramento, California. We ended in Berkeley, California. And we went all the way, across country, all the way up to to Boston and all the way down to, I don't know if we went into Florida, but, Atlanta and we hit Louisiana, New Orleans on a trip, all of Texas, you name it. Everywhere. It was an extensive 6-week tour. So since then, we've done a couple of short tours east of the Mississippi, which being where we're located, it's so much easier, the drives. If you do Midwest and especially the East Coast, the drives are so much shorter. It's so much better, on fuel, economically, and everything else. It just makes sense. So, we've started, you can't oversaturate the big markets, and that's kind of where we're at right now. This is probably the last U.S. tour for the Zero and Below record. In fact, when we get back from this tour, it's writing time, for the next Crowbar. So, but yeah, it's very important to hit these markets, and we tried to even do we're doing Anaheim instead of L.A. Just trying to do a few things differently on this tour. We're doing I think Wichita, Kansas, which I think we've done in the past here and there. But a lot of times these little towns really surprise you because they don't get anything, and I mean, we're 2.5 years into the touring cycle of Zero and Below. So this is, it's pretty much run its course. So, that's kind of a lot of the reason. And we haven't headlined out West since, I'll say, 2017, I think, is the last time we actually headlined shows out West. We've done support since then we've done support for Carcass, and we did support for Sepultura. We did support for Suicidal Tendencies on the West Coast, which was great. All of those were great. But, we haven't done Crowbar headlining sets out that way in 7 years. So, I mean, historically for us, the West Coast hasn't been really nearly as good as the Midwest or the East Coast, or the South is for us. But, it's something that we just said, look, the fans deserve it, and we want to go on tour. We just finished hitting all these different markets in the Midwest and the East Coast back in April. So, let's head west.
Does it surprise you this far into your career that the West Coast is still kind of not as on board, for lack of a better term? Does that still surprise you that you maybe don't do as well headlining out there as you do everywhere else?
I mean, yes and no. The thing is we were never really, we were always influenced by other than obviously, Black Sabbath. I mean, I would say the only West Coast band that we were really influenced by was the Melvins. Everything else was East Coast hardcore, Carnivore, which is, Pete Steele's pre-Typo, the Slow Deep and Hard record. Phil Anselmo had gotten me a copy of that somehow. Like, they weren't even named Typo Negative yet. It was way before the record came out. And so it was already like my favorite record before they even named the band Typo Negative. So that was a huge influence on the early stuff as well. And, really, I mean, I think that, our influences for the most part are from the East Coast. And, I think I don't even like the term sludge, sludge metal or whatever the heck they want to call it. But I mean, we're certainly not like a desert rock stoner band either that you get out in the West Coast, we're a completely different animal than that. So I don't know if it surprises me. I mean, hopefully, we get some good shows. It's been a while. But it is what it is. I mean, we go, a lot of people are, why don't you ever come here? Why don't you ever come there? Well, we're trying to hit a lot of these hot spots. It just depends on how out of the way it is,
Right.
And there's certain areas that we've tried, and I'm not going to name any towns in particular, but that we've tried over and over again, and it's just a bad turnout every time we play. And I'm like, you know what? Just scratch that one off. I mean, it's just not working. We've tried it supporting other bands. We've tried it headlining and, even supporting other bands. The merchandise sales are not good, and we just don't have an audience in certain cities, and that's fine because we have enough cities around the world where we do have a great audience, and that's great.
I think what's been interesting, and maybe it's because I'm currently in the process of finishing Danny Loker's book, because I'm talking to him tomorrow as of when we're recording. So I've kind of been like steeped in the like various subgenres of like thrash and speed metal and all this kind of stuff, and him being an East Coaster, talking about going out west for the first time, making friends with different bands from the West Coast, and even him just getting into the CBGB scene and getting into hardcore scene versus like the metal scene as it was back then.
Right.
So it's just been kind of interesting to kind of go back, and it's like this was all happening like literally when I was born, but it's like I still remember, and I still feel like there's a little bit of that separation of scenes and so forth. So it's kind of interesting to hear you say like we're just not doing well in certain areas or the West Coast, because it's like I'm reading this and it's like I remember in the late 90s, early 2000s when like hardcore, as it became now known as like metalcore, so like bands like 18 Visions and stuff like that, like them having problems going out east because it was a total culture shock from like how they looked versus, the bands out east that are not dressing up or like, wearing uniforms, quote unquote, or wearing like guy liner and stuff. And it was like just what they had to deal with. So it's just been kind of interesting to think about how the scenes collectively over the decades, that it seems like it would be more inclusive, and that bands would just be like, or fans, I should say, would be like, I just fuck with this band and they're rad. So like, that's all it is. But it's interesting to hear that decades later, you're still kind of like, we're just not doing well out west. And it just is what it is at this point.
I mean, the big cities, I mean, like, I'm looking at ticket sales, for Anaheim, for Portland, Oregon, for Seattle. I mean, those are all good,
right?
But, we're struggling in places like Salt Lake City and stuff like that. But, it's like, look, whoever, my mentality has always been, and I'm not trying to be a downer because to me, the glass is always full. It's never half empty. Absolutely. It's always half full. So I'm all, trying to be positive, and we're going to have some great shows. And I told the guys, I said, look, a couple of these markets, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, when you play in a small town like Yuma, Arizona, I mean, I don't even know what the population is. I don't know if it's close to any bigger cities. I mean, we're doing Tucson, which is a legit, big enough city. But, we'll just see, all you do is, we have fun and we give 110% every night. 'Cause I don't care, if it is we call it a shot show, meaning like attendance is really poor. Well, you know what? It's not fair to the people that bought tickets and bought T-shirts and came out to support us. Like, I hate when bands, like some bands have that attitude, like, they play a short set, they don't, they just kind of go through the motions to get paid or whatever, because New Orleans being a small market, and it really is a small market. I remember seeing Saxon, which is one of my favorite metal bands of all time, in New Orleans, and it was an add-on show. And, there were maybe at the most 150 people, and they came out like it was Madison Square Garden. And, I'm friends with, he retired now, but Paul Quinn, original guitarist. And, all of the guys really, I mean, we play a lot of festivals with them, and, so, I mean, we went on the bus and listened to some of the new Saxon stuff and hung out before the show, had a couple of beers and watched it. I mean, I had friends from high school, that had never seen Saxon, that were just blown away. And I mean, they sounded amazing. They absolutely kicked ass, and these are guys in there, at the time, that was a little while back, but the guys in their mid to late 60s at the time, and just kicking ass. And I'm like, that's the way you have to have that mentality. You can't, it's not fair to the fans. And once again, I'm not saying, all these shows are shot or anything. I think the bigger cities are going to be great. It's just when you're playing a small market, like say Wichita, Kansas, we don't really know what to expect, I mean, how many people really live there? How many people are actually into the kind of music we're playing? You don't know. But you know what? You gotta give it a shot, and you go kick ass for the people that do show up.
Yeah, I think for me, like what gets interesting about these is I feel like some of these venues, and more like I can specifically mention the Earl in Atlanta because that's one of my go-to bars when I'm in Atlanta. And it's a thing where it's like, I think you're going to get a really good sense of who the people are in the area you're in, because it's going to be full of townies, essentially, like locals. And to me, like, I feel like those are the kind of places as a traveler that my wife and I like to go to, like those kind of like small nooks and cranny type places where it's like,
it's not like in the city proper. It's more on the outskirts.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, see, I prefer that too. I mean, because when you're doing obviously Manhattan, but even, Hollywood, like if you're playing the Whiskey or something, or if you're playing like a big market like Philly and you're playing, like there's a new venue outside of Philly called the Broken Goblet. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice bar, they brew their own beer. It's a big beer selection, great sound system. And we had a great show there a few years ago, and everybody was so happy. Like, thank God I don't have to go into Philly, because nobody lives in downtown Philly that goes to the shows,
Right.
So I mean, parking's a pain in the ass. It's crime, It's like you're going to get your window busted in your car, or people are like, dude, I live 10 minutes from here. I took an Uber so I can come out and have drinks. I'm like, great, So it's like a new. Hopefully this venue, I mean, I've heard nothing but positive reviews from other bands playing there too that are, more of our level that we're friends with. So hopefully that, venues like that stick around. So, and we also try to avoid as often as possible the corporate stuff,
right?
And do more mom and pop stuff, because we're, being a legitimate DIY band, and we are in the sense that we have a driver for the bandwagon bus that we use, and that's all he does is drive. And my wife does merchandise and tour manages in the U.S., and that's it. And it's us 4 band members. No guitar techs, no sound guy, no anything. If there's no loaders, we load our own shit. I mean, I'll be 60 years old in April and I'm carrying guitar cabinets around. It's like, hey, you do what you got to do. It's an honest day's work, and, you're blessed to have the opportunity. But, so, I mean, we're really excited, though. Everybody is positive, and we're really looking forward to the tour. So I'm looking forward to this Atlanta thing. We normally do good in Atlanta, and we have historically, but they, like it's one of those cities that we've gone to so many times over the years, either supporting someone else or, just headlining. I mean, even at the old Masquerade or the new Masquerade, the shows were always good shows. So, I mean, it'll be cool to check out a new venue, there. And I'm glad it's in the on the outskirts, because the new Masquerade and the old Masquerade, thank God, they both have proper parking for buses and stuff like that. But because Atlanta's a fucking big city too, But I mean, when you play a lot of these big cities, it's like, okay, because we kind of live on the bandwagon. That's us. The driver's got his own cab in the front. Of course, he's welcome to come. Once he's parked for the day, he's welcome to come on and have a couple of beers and eat or whatever, and then go to sleep. But a lot of times in the big cities, it's we get dropped off at the venue, we unload the gear real quick, and we're stuck there the whole fucking day till the driver can come back around at 2 a.m. or something. And it really sucks. So, I'm glad this is on the outskirts and should be parking. Hopefully, I'm not jinxing this, but parking should be a lot easier, being that it's not downtown,
Yeah, it's like that area of East Atlanta is a pretty cool little area. I'll definitely, kind of seeing some of the bars it seems like you like when I've seen you at various places here in Michigan. There's a bar that's probably like 2 blocks-ish away from the place you're playing, called the Trophy Room. It's a pretty cool little like dive bar that's got like a weird vibe where they got like deer skulls and stuff like that, mounted on the walls, and it's a very eclectic grouping of people from like punk rock kids. Like I think the last time I was there, like randomly Turbo Negro was on, and I was like, all right, cool. Like a bar that's playing Turbo Negro and I didn't play it, like that's cool.
Man. I mean, when we dig all that too. We'd like it to be, like I said, just get away from the big. I mean, we're not a big household name band by any means, and we try to avoid the corporate shit as much as possible. Like, we don't play the city of New Orleans. We play across the literally, you throw a rock or you walk across the railroad tracks at the back of Southport Music Hall, and you are in Orleans. You're in. We don't have parishes. We don't have counties. We're the only fucking state in the country that calls it a parish. but it is a county. So you go from Jefferson County, say, to Orleans County. If you walk 10 seconds from the back door of the venue across the railroad track. But you know what? You got safe, well-lit parking where it's at. It's a mom and pop family-owned place. My stepson works there. And we're good friends with the owners. They treat us great. And, it's easy on everybody. You play the House of Blues, you got to pay $40 to park. There's people busting up windows at all the paid parking lots, even though there's supposed to be security. They tax you on your, on the show. They tax you on the merchandise. They take a merchandise percentage. Beers are $10. It's like, man, this is... who the fuck wants to do all that crap?
No.
I mean, it's got to be somebody I really like to go to the House of Blues and go into the city, really, the older I've gotten.
So I know I got you for about another 5 or 6 minutes before I got to let you go. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire some questions at you.
Yeah, sure.
So Kiss, obviously, I think anyone who knows anything about you, Kiss is one of your, bigger favorite bands. With them calling it a day, recently, I kind of wonder when a band like that you've long admired for, not only growing up, but literally like the existence of your whole career, when you see a band like that finally call it a day, what does that do for you, like personally or professionally? Like, how does that affect you?
I mean, although it was only, Ace Frehley was my favorite member and always will be. So, it's still Kiss. I mean, I saw him quite a few times with Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, and they did it. They did great job. I mean, even Ace himself said it. He goes, "I got nothing personal against Tommy Thayer. If it wasn't him, it'd be somebody else."
Right.
That's just the way things are. But still, it's like I can't remember. I discovered Kiss, I'll say, about 1976, because I think Destroyer was just coming out. A friend of mine had brought Kiss Alive to school for me to borrow. His older brother had it. And as soon as I heard, Deuce on Kiss Alive side, I was sold. And so I literally saved up, my allowance money from cutting the grass and all that kind of shit, because I was 11 years old, and bought Kiss Alive 1. And then I remember getting Destroyer. It was before Rock and Roll Over came over later, and it came out late 76.
Yep.
But I mean, the other day I was walking around and I'm like, I've constantly, since I'm 11 years old and I'm, closer to 60 than 59. So I'm like, I don't think since I was 11 years old. So that's what, 40 for the last 48 years, or going on 49 years, there's not been one day in my life, except maybe touring, but I bring Kiss t-shirts on tour. If I'm at home, there's not been one day in my life that I haven't seen something from Kiss in my house, in my bedroom, in the front room, whatever it might be, hanging up. And ever since I was a kid, my whole room was Kiss. And it's always old school original band. So I mean, it's sad. At the same time, I'm happy that, they had such a long career, especially for a band that, the critics are like, oh, I hope these guys got, great day jobs, because it's sure that ain't gonna last. And everybody slammed them, and all reviews were terrible. People are like, oh, it's all image, all image. Well, if it's all image, why the fuck do they sell 100 and some million records?
Right.
Why am I talking about them 48 years later if it's all image? Because it's not. They had great songs, even during the no makeup. It was different, and they were trying to be like, more Bon Jovi-ish and whatnot, and just go along with the 80s hair metal bands. But I mean, they still had some great albums. I'll take away the word great. They had some good, solid records and a great song here and there.
Yes,
I'll go as far as to say that. But but it's sad. It's just like with anything. When all your idols and heroes retire, or even worse, when they're all passing away left and right, it's like, but when you're my age, and if these guys are, I'm 60, I'm my 60th year of life, just call me 60. So even if this guy was young, if this guy was fucking 20 when he was in, a band that I grew up liking, he's fucking 80 if he's alive,
Right.
I mean, and if he was older, the chances, it's a miracle Paul McCartney's still alive, or Jesus, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards. I mean, Mick looks great. They played in New Orleans at the Jazz and Heritage Festival. It was a big deal. And he was still, we watched, they didn't allow local news to go in, but we watched a lot of it on YouTube, like fan shot. And I mean, for 80 fucking years old, he's still getting, he's still putting on the show.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's just, the bands that I grew up, like worshiping, even later on, like getting into Van Halen or whatever now. I mean, Eddie's gone 2 years now or whatever now. It's like all the idols and heroes just start to die, and it's fucking sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I just turned 40 about a month ago. So it's like, seeing some of the bands that I grew up with, doing 20th anniversary album playthroughs and stuff. And you're like, I don't feel that old, but here we are.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we are. We kind of, we did the 30th anniversary of the self-titled and the, 25th anniversary or whatever of the fucking, we did the, I guess it was the 20th anniversary of the Oddfellows Rest. We did the whole record in its entirety a few times. We did the self-titled quite a few times. And I'm like, you know what? It's just not fun. We have so many more songs from so many, we have 12 albums, so it's like, and, we still play current. We still, every show, we still do Chemical Gods and Bleeding from Every Hole, the 2 video songs off of Zero and Below. Not because we're trying to force them into the set and show people our new music, but because they go over great live. And I notice the younger fans singing all the words to them because they used to see in the videos.
Right.
So, I mean, it's important to us. I don't want to be, nostalgia sells, and there's something to be said for sticking it out so many years, but, at the same time, I'm about living. I don't live in the past. I don't like people that only dwell on the past. And I live for the moment, and I look toward the future. You know, I don't want to. I mean, I'm proud of all the accomplishments I've had in all the bands I played in, but at the same time, you know, I'm concentrating on this upcoming tour. I'm not worried about the fucking Broken Glass record or something, you know, from 1996. It's old news.
Right.
Great record, but it's old news, you know.
I know technically I'm supposed to let you go now. Do you have time for 2 more, or do I need to let you go now?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay. So, I mean, kind of to that, like, this is sort of a multifaceted question, but, you know, I had asked you and Pepper the one time I got to chat with him shortly after chatting with you a couple years ago. You know, at the time it was like I think the 20th anniversary of Down 2. And at the time, there wasn't really anything, you know, planned for any of you guys. So it was just kind of cool, you know, picking your brains about that era, making that record and so forth. Obviously, now in that time, Down has come back. You've done some rehearsals that you posted on your socials and such. How has it been getting back in a room and playing those songs with those guys?
Oh, absolutely amazing. And, you know, we did a fly date out to Mescalero, New Mexico, on Indian Reservation and did a show. I think September 27th was the show, but it was a great show. And it's always, you know, we don't do a lot with Down, but when we get together, like we've been doing a lot of these rehearsals, we're writing. So we have 10 brand new Down originals. And it's really great stuff. You know, we're all super excited about getting it done when we can. The hardest part is juggling schedules, you know.
Right.
It's like, you know, everybody's available in the month of December, but Jimmy's on tour, you know, with I Ain't God. So it's like, then this one will be, you know, it's like, I mean, I literally looked up when the Pantera Metallica dates came out, you know, with the Pantera doing every Friday.
Right.
I literally looked at it and I'm like, okay, I'm free for this, and this, because Phil's busy every fucking Friday, you know, and, you know, like he jokes all the time. Like it'll be like, you know, we have a little Down chat with the 5 band members and Phil's wife Kate, you know, who's basically a 6th member. But you know, we have a little chat thing. We tell a lot of jokes and stuff. And I remember our bass player Pat Brewtallys plays in a little punk rock band that Dave Chandler from St. Vitus, the guitar player, sings for, and Phil making a comment. Pat's like, "Hey fellas, you know, my new punk band Raid or whatever is playing Friday night at such and such, you know, opening for some band." And Phil's like, "Have a great show, Pat. I have a little gig this Friday with Metallica." You know, like just being like super dry and like classic Phil Anselmo, you know, stuff. You know, like everything is his sense of humor is just fucking great. It's like, and he's not mean to it. Like, it's just, you got to know him. But I just busted out laughing. Like, oh God! Speaking of idols dying, when Paul Di'Anno passed away, Jimmy Bauer's like, "What happened?" And Phil put, "He died, Jim." And I'm like, you know, and I put, "Well, dude, he kind of it was kind of on the Lemmy diet. I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting at Sweden Rock. You know, he's kind of running with the Hells Angels and doing the speed and whiskey diet and all that. I mean, you know, you don't get a whole lot of years out of that. And his health got bad at the end. But yeah, you know, man, it's great. You know, it's crazy. But yeah, new Down. You know, hopefully, I mean, as soon as we can get together and start, we're going to. You know, we have a festival in April, and I think we're hoping to do some shows. The festival's in Las Vegas. We're hoping to do some shows playing out to Vegas and maybe hit like one on the way home instead of just Deadhead. And that way we can take a bus and take all of our gear and not have to use rental gear and fly and all that pain in the ass shit. So,
right.
You know, that's in April. And then we're doing Milwaukee Metal Fest in mid-May. And then other than that, I mean, Phil's pretty much,
locked in, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I was actually really surprised that he said okay to Milwaukee Metal because it kind of falls on one of the rare, like, weekends off, I guess, with Metallica. So, you know, I think they play the week before, I might be mistaken, with Metallica. Then we have Down, and then the next weekend, I believe they're back with Metallica. So I guess the Metallica guys just take a little break here and there, you know. Because, I mean, even when Down toured with them back in 2008, we did a bunch of football stadiums over in Europe and Eastern Europe and everything with them, with direct support for them. And then Down did the first leg of Death Magnetic back in 2008. Mm-hmm. And like when we started in Arizona, when we were out west, I mean, they would fly home every night, you know, and then they'd take like a week off where we'd go do Down headlining shows and, you know, at the House of Blues circuit or whatever. And then we'd meet back up with them. And I mean, it was so awesome because Robert Trujillo was kind of new, I guess, to the band at the time, a little bit. I mean, you're talking fucking, 2008, 18, I don't know, I can't count. Yeah, 16 years ago.
I was going to say, we're approaching almost 20 years of that, even.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so, but he was like, he goes, oh, it's unbelievable, dude. He's like, you know, surfing with my son at 7 o'clock this morning, and I fucking had lunch with my family. And then I jumped on, got a car service, jumped on a plane. Yeah. You know, you'd hear like, you know, the car service, you'd hear all the radios blowing up. You know, band has arrived, and all security and everything, you know. Every afternoon or whatever, they get there like, you know, 5-ish, 4 or 5 o'clock. And then they kind of camp out and do, you know, like say we were in the Midwest, they might get hotels at Chicago and fly after the show to Chicago every night. So they had like a home station, you know.
Yeah.
And it just made it so much easier. But I mean, Jesus, they're big enough now where they just play Friday and Sunday at a fucking football stadium and sell it out, you know. And that's it. They technically aren't on tour.
No.
You know, I mean, you play 2 shows a weekend. You're like a weekend warrior for 80,000 people, you know. So it's pretty brilliant. It really is.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine was one of the bands that's on that run, and getting to see them, it was the first time I've ever seen Metallica, and seeing them at Ford Field with just that production and everything. I just kind of sat there and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot. No wonder they're only able to do 2 days, because packing it up probably takes a while, and setting it all up probably takes most of the week. So it's like, but I mean, just to see it, you're just like, it kind of boggles your mind that there are that many people to see essentially a band, and it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, well, we just had the Swiftie takeover of the city of New Orleans this week. So on the plus side, she brought in an estimated $500 million to the economy of New Orleans that we badly need. But it was insane, and I mean, me and Pepper were even talking about that. And he's like, dude, even, you know, like she almost makes like Metallica not look that big.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a it's a phenomenon. It's like nothing I've ever seen. I mean, she sold over 200,000 tickets. She sold out the Superdome Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Shit.
And people were flying from all over the fucking country. And that's why, you know, we were at 100% occupancy in the hotels. And I forget how many hotel rooms we have in the city of New Orleans, but being a tourist town, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So there wasn't one fucking room available, you know. And you know, I saw a little bit on the local news and all. I mean, it looked like the show was great, but I mean, it really did a lot for the city. And they were interviewing all the people at the airport leaving, and they're like, you know, I can't wait to come back and visit New Orleans. Everybody was great here. We had a blast. The food's incredible, you know. So, you know, it did a lot for the city, but I mean, yeah, she's on a whole other planet. She's on her own fucking planet, you know.
It's one thing, like, I feel like if you're in this industry, it's kind of hard to listen to people talk shit on it, because you're like, she's employing so many people. Literally, her showing up and playing brings in, like you said, so much money to your local economy.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of hard to really shit on it at that point, because you're like, look, it cannot be for me musically, but I, as someone who understands a lot more of the behind the scenes and what's really happening, I really choose not to be a negative person about something that's so positive in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I am with it. And, you know, my wife, Robin, I'm like, babe, you know, we had just gotten up and it's all over the local news. You know, I'm old school, watching news in the morning. And she started Googling, and we're just looking up how much does she make per gig? How much does she sell in merch per night? Ugh. And she starts rattling off all this crazy shit. And it's like her last tour that she did, she gave every one of the truck drivers and bus drivers a check for $100,000 on top of that pay, just out of her pockets.
Yep.
Because I mean, she's raking in billions.
Yeah.
I mean, she grossed. I think she made $13.6 million per show and averages $2 million a night in merch.
Yeah.
So she grossed over $50 million in fucking 3 nights.
Yeah.
So it's insane, dude. You know, but you know, like you said, I mean, I'm not going to go listen to her music. You know, whatever. I'm not the biggest fan of. They got to show her 200 times at the fucking Chiefs. I call them the Fighting Swifties now. It's like, you know, and you know what? Everybody bitches. I said it's not her fucking fault.
Yeah.
She's in the fucking thing watching her fiance play the game. They're the ones, you know, they ought to, like, you know, last when the Saints got killed by the Chiefs, I think I didn't even watch the whole game. It was so bad, but you know, I saw her once. I think they kind of died down on it, but at first it was ridiculous. I mean, I remember waiting on I'm in Central Time, so waiting on like a 3 or 3:15, whatever it is, kickoff for a later Saints game, and the Saints weren't even playing. The Saints were playing later, but the Chiefs, I think, were playing at you know, maybe Sunday night football or Monday night or something. But they were talking about her during I'm watching like the fucking Eagles and the Cowboys or something, and they're talking about what does she have to do with that? But it's not her fault, you know.
No, and I think, like, you know, that will segue perfectly into my last question for you, just because you have stayed home. I think, you know, everyone knows you are, you know, in New Orleans through and through, and have still lived down that way. You know, Super Bowl this year, you know, we're still a few months away from it, but, you know, it's happening back in New Orleans, and, you know, just... You know, I was going to say, what does, you know, the big game coming back, what is that, you know, is there excitement getting ready for it, or are all of you locals kind of like, oh, this is going to suck, and we're kind of over it?
I mean, we really don't, like I was saying earlier, you know, like not really going to the House of Blues. I mean, I don't have any reason to really go into the city, you know, of New Orleans. So, I mean, I think it's great. I mean, we had Taylor Swift bring in $500 million. We have the Sugar Bowl.
Yep.
We have the Super Bowl, and we have Mardi Gras. So that's a lot in like a couple months. Shit, all of that's in the next, you know, 4 months or so. You know, 4 or 5 months is all that shit. So it's great for the city. And I mean, you know, obviously looking at the Saints, there's no chance of a hometown, you know, Super Bowl team, but. In fact, my daughter hit me up because she's a senior at LSU, and she's been going to all the games, like with her boyfriend and her other little friends, and she's really loving college football. She's like really loving football now. And my ex-wife, her mom, and I had taken her to a game when she was like basically a baby, like 3 years old or something. And so, of course, she doesn't remember it. So she asked me, "Could we go to a Saints game?" So I said, sure. So we're going to go. I got some tickets for me and my daughter and for Robin to go see, I think we play Washington Commanders, you know,
good game.
Or something. Doesn't really even matter. It's just a point, you know, she wants to go and experience it and whatever. So, you know, I'm like, I said, sure, you know, we'll go do that. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I think the dome down there, what is it, the Superdome? Right? Yeah. So the Superdome is probably one of the last stadiums that my wife and I want to go to. Like on our we have a couple of stadiums we really want to see. We're going to go to a Raiders game this year because we saw that stadium getting built, and even though